I found someone new. I'm done pretending. The words hung in the air like smoke, thick and suffocating. Around our dinner table at the beachfront restaurant, everything stopped. My 17-year-old daughter Chloe's fork clattered against her plate. My 14-year-old son Tyler's mouth hung open. Mitch. Even the ocean seemed to pause, the waves holding their breath. I looked at my husband, Gregory, across the table, his face calm, almost relieved. After 23 years of marriage, this was how he chose to end it. During our family vacation in Charleston, South Carolina, in front of our children, in front of his parents who sat frozen at the other end of the table. But here's what Gregory didn't know. I'd been preparing for this moment for 6 months. My name is Brooke. I'm 52 years old and I work as a commercial real estate broker in Phoenix, Arizona. For the past 2 decades, I built a career while raising 2 kids and supporting a husband who spent more time networking than actually working. I thought we were partners. I thought we were building something together. I was wrong. I smiled at Gregory, reached into my purse, and pulled out a manila envelope. The same envelope I'd been carrying with me for the past week, waiting for the right moment. Turns out he handed me that moment on a silver platter. Then this is yours, I said, sliding it across the white tablecloth. Gregory's confident smirk faltered. His mother, Janet, leaned forward, her perfectly manicured hand clutching her wine glass. His father, Walter, set down his fork, eyes narrowing. What is this? Gregory asked, but his hands were already shaking as he opened the envelope. I watched his face change as he read the first page. The color drained from his cheeks. His eyes went wide. Then his hands started trembling so badly the papers rustled. You can't, he whispered. This isn't possible. Oh, it's very possible, I said, keeping my voice steady and calm. In fact, it's already done. Chloe looked at me, confusion mixing with something that might have been respect. Tyler had stopped chewing entirely. Janet reached for the papers, but Gregory pulled them away, still staring at the words like they might rearrange themselves into something less devastating. The truth was, I'd suspected Gregory was cheating for almost a year. The late nights, the secretive phone calls, the sudden interest in grooming and cologne. Classic signs. But I'm not the type of woman who confronts without proof. And I'm certainly not the type who acts without a plan. 6 months ago, I hired a private investigator named Olivia. She was thorough, discreet, and terrifyingly efficient. Within 3 weeks, she had photographs, text messages, hotel receipts, and a timeline that would make any divorce attorney salivate. Gregory wasn't just having an affair. He was having affairs, plural, with at least 3 different women over the past 2 years. But that wasn't even the worst part. While digging into Gregory's activities, Olivia uncovered something else. My dear husband had been systematically draining our joint accounts and transferring money into hidden accounts under his mother's name. Over the past 4 years, he'd moved nearly 200 zlotys. Money I'd earned, money from property deals I'd closed, while he played golf and pretended to run his failing consulting business. He was planning to leave me. He was planning to leave me broke. So, I made my own plans. I contacted the best divorce attorney in Phoenix, a woman named Catherine, who had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless. We built a case brick by brick. We documented every withdrawal, every transfer, every lie. We traced the money, froze the accounts, and prepared for war. But Catherine gave me one piece of advice that changed everything. Don't tip your hand, she said. Let him make the first move. Let him think he's in control, then crush him. So, I waited. I smiled through dinners. I nodded during his complaints about work. I booked this family vacation when he suggested it, knowing he was probably planning to announce his departure in some dramatic fashion. I just didn't expect him to be stupid enough to do it in front of everyone. Gregory's father, Walter, finally spoke. What's in those papers, son? Gregory couldn't answer. His jaw worked, but no words came out. Divorce papers, I said helpfully. Filed 3 days ago. Also included are copies of bank statements showing the 200 zlotys Gregory stole from our joint accounts and hid under your name, Janet, plus evidence of multiple affairs which in Arizona, despite being a no-fault divorce state, can still impact asset division when combined with financial misconduct. Janet's wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the tile floor. Red wine spread across the white like blood. You're lying, Gregory finally managed. Page 7, I said, bank statements, your signature, your mother's accounts. Page 12, photographs from the Sharon downtown. Page 15, text messages discussing how you'd, quote, finally be free of the frigid witch. That's me, apparently, the frigid witch who paid your car insurance for the past decade. Chloe made a small sound that might have been a laugh or a sob. Tyler looked at his father with something I'd never seen before. Disgust. Mom, Chloe whispered. Is this real? Very real, sweetheart. Gregory stood up so fast his chair tipped backward. You can't do this, I'll fight you. I'll take everything. I smiled wider. With what money, Gregory? With what lawyer? Because as of this morning, every account with your name on it has been frozen pending the investigation into financial fraud and spousal theft. You don't even have enough credit left to pay for this dinner. That's when he nearly fell off his chair. The silence that followed was delicious. Gregory grabbed the edge of the table to steady himself, his face cycling through colors like a broken traffic light, red from anger, white from shock, then a sickly green that suggested his expensive seafood dinner might make a reappearance. This is insane, he finally said. You're insane, am I? I folded my hands on the table, picture of calm. Let's review. You stole $200,000 from accounts that I funded with my earnings. You conducted multiple extramarital affairs while I worked 6-star weeks to keep us afloat. You plotted with your mother to hide assets and leave me destitute. And I'm the insane one for protecting myself. Janet had recovered enough to find her voice. This is slander. You can't prove any of this. Actually, I can. Private investigators are wonderful things. So are forensic accountants. Did you know every electronic transfer leaves a trail? Even the ones you thought you'd hidden so cleverly. Walter was reading over Gregory's shoulder now, his distinguished face growing harder with each page. He'd built a successful accounting firm over 40 years, and he understood exactly what he was looking at. Financial fraud, theft, betrayal. Is this true? Walter asked his son. Gregory opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again like a fish drowning in air. Don't answer that, Janet snapped. We need a lawyer. You'll need several, I agreed. Criminal defense, family law, maybe even a tax attorney when the IRS gets involved. Those unreported account transfers are going to be interesting to explain. You called the IRS? Gregory's voice cracked. Not yet, but Catherine assures me they'll be very interested in certain irregularities once the divorce proceedings are public record. I watched this information sink in. Gregory had always been clever in small, mean ways. Clever enough to hide affairs, to slowly drain accounts, to manipulate his mother into helping him. But he'd never been smart. Smart would have been covering his tracks better. Smart would have been not announcing his betrayal at a family dinner before securing his exit strategy. Tyler spoke for the first time since Gregory's announcement. Dad, did you really steal money from Mom? It's not stealing, Gregory said weakly. It's marital property. I had a right to it. You had a right to half, I corrected. After the divorce was finalized, what you didn't have a right to do was secretly transfer funds into hidden accounts while lying to me about our financial situation. That's called theft, Gregory. That's called fraud. Chloe stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. I can't believe you. Mom worked so hard and you just. Her voice broke. She grabbed her purse and walked away from the table, heading toward the beach. Tyler looked between his father and me, then followed his sister. Good. They didn't need to see the rest of this. You're turning my children against me, Gregory said. No, you did that yourself. I just provided documentation. Janet was scrolling through her phone now, probably trying to reach their family lawyer. Good luck with that on a Saturday night during vacation season. Plus, once he heard the details, no competent attorney would touch this case without a substantial retainer. Money Gregory didn't have any more. Walter set the papers down carefully. When did you know? I appreciated the question. Walter had always been the smart one in the family. About the affairs, almost a year. About the money, 6 months, and you said nothing. I was gathering evidence, building a case, making sure that when this moment came, I'd have everything I needed. That's cold, Janet hissed. That's smart, Walter corrected his wife. He looked at me with something that might have been respect. You could have confronted him privately, worked something out. Could I have? Gregory was stealing from me, Walter, planning to leave me with nothing. You really think he would have suddenly developed a conscience if I'd asked nicely? Walter didn't answer. We both knew the truth. Gregory had slumped back into his chair, the envelope still clutched in his white-knuckled hands. Who is she? He asked suddenly. Your investigator. Who told you all this? Does it matter? I want to know who's been spying on me. A professional. Someone very good at her job. Someone who documented every hotel visit, every dinner, every text message to Stephanie, to Jessica, to Lauren. 3 women, Gregory. 3 that we know of. Were there more? He flinched at each name. How could you do this? Janet directed at me, not her son. Interesting. How could you destroy your family like this? I didn't destroy anything. Gregory did that when he decided to steal and cheat. I'm just making sure I survived the explosion. A waiter approached tentatively, probably wondering if he should call security. I smiled at him. We're fine. Just a family discussion. Could we have the check, please? I'll get it, Walter said quietly. He pulled out his wallet. Thank you, I said, meaning it. Walter wasn't the enemy here. He was just a man watching his son reveal himself as a fraud. Gregory was still staring at those papers like they might burst into flames. What happens now? Now you find a lawyer though. Good luck affording one. You figure out where you're going to live since the house is solely in my name. You explain to your children why you threw away their family and you live with the consequences of your choices. This isn't over, he said, but his voice held no conviction. Actually, Gregory, it is. You ended it yourself about 20 minutes ago. I'm just making sure you don't get to write the ending alone. The check arrived. Walter paid it. We all stood up. This awful dinner finally concluded. As we left the restaurant, I could feel Gregory's eyes boring into my back. Let him stare. Let him panic. Let him finally understand what it felt like to be blindsided by someone you trusted. I'd spent 6 months preparing for this moment. He was about to spend much longer regretting it. I found Chloe and Tyler sitting on the beach wall, waves crashing in the darkness beyond them. The Charleston night was warm and sticky, salt air mixing with the scent of night-blooming jasmine from the hotel gardens. My daughter had been crying. My son looked stunned, like someone had hit him with a brick. I sat between them, not saying anything at first. Sometimes silence was better than explanations. Is it true? Chloe finally asked. All of it. Yes. How long have you known about the affairs? Almost a year. About the money? 6 months. Tyler turned to look at me. Why didn't you tell us? Because I needed to be sure. I needed evidence and I needed to protect both of you from being caught in the middle while I built my case. We're caught in the middle anyway, he said. I know. I'm sorry. But this way, at least it's over quickly. No long drawn-out battle where you're asked to take sides. Just facts, evidence, and consequences. Chloe wiped her eyes. Did Dad really steal 200,000? He did. Money I earned from selling commercial properties. He moved it into hidden accounts with your grandmother's help, planning to leave me with nothing when he finally left. That's so messed up. Tyler's voice cracked on the last word. He was trying so hard to be tough, to be grown up, but he was still 14 and his father had just revealed himself as a monster. It is messed up, I agreed. But we're going to be okay. Are we? Chloe asked. How? Good question. How did I explain to my children that I'd been planning for this moment? That I'd frozen accounts, secured lawyers, documented everything, that their mother had become cold and calculating because cold and calculating was the only way to survive. The house is in my name only. I said your father insisted on it 8 years ago for tax reasons. Turned out to be the smartest thing he ever did for me. The joint accounts are frozen, but I have my own accounts that he never knew about. Money I set aside every month from my commissions just in case. I've been preparing for this possibility for a while. You knew he'd do this? Tyler asked. I suspected he might. Your father has been unhappy for years. I thought maybe we could work through it, go to counseling, fix whatever was broken. But then I found out about the affairs and the money, and I realized there was nothing left to fix. Chloe leaned her head on my shoulder. What happens now? Now we go back to Phoenix after this vacation is over. We live in our house. You both stay in your schools. Everything stays as normal as possible. Your father will need to find somewhere else to live. He'll have visitation rights, but given his behavior, I don't think either of you will be forced to spend time with him if you don't want to. I don't want to, Chloe said immediately. Tyler was quiet for a moment. He really said he found someone new just like that, like we didn't matter. That was the part that broke my heart the most. Not the betrayal of me, but the casual cruelty toward his own children. He did then, screw him. Tyler stood up, brushing sand off his shorts. Sorry, Mom, but screw him. I should have corrected the language. Instead, I just nodded. Some situations deserved profanity. We sat there for a while longer, listening to the ocean and watching the moon paint silver paths across the water. Other families walked by, couples holding hands, kids chasing each other with light-up toys, normal people having normal vacations. We'd never be that family again. My phone buzzed. A text from Catherine, my attorney. Heard through the grapevine you delivered the papers. How did he take it? I typed back. He nearly fell off his chair. Perfect. Call me Monday. We have work to do. Work. Right? This was just the beginning. There would be court dates, depositions, arguments over assets and custody. Gregory would fight because that's what weak men did when cornered. He'd lie, manipulate, try to paint me as the villain. But I had evidence, I had facts, I had a paper trail that would choke a horse. More importantly, I had the truth. Mom, Chloe's voice was small. Are you okay? Was I okay? My marriage was ending. The man I'd loved for over 2 decades had betrayed me in every possible way. I was about to become a single mother, starting over at 52 years old. I will be, I said, and I meant it. We walked back to the hotel together, my arms around both kids. In the lobby, we passed Gregory arguing with his mother in harsh whispers. They both looked up as we approached. Janet's face was pinched with fury. Gregory's was desperate. Brooke, please, he started. Can we just talk about this? I think you said everything you needed to say at dinner. I made a mistake. I was confused. I didn't mean it. Which part didn't you mean? Finding someone new, being done pretending, or the 200 zalozhen you stole? He flinched. Janet grabbed his arm. Don't say anything else. Not until we have legal representation. Good advice, I agreed. You should listen to your mother. She's had plenty of practice helping you hide things. We walked past them to the elevators. As the doors closed, I caught one last glimpse of Gregory's face. He looked lost, scared, and suddenly very old. Good. In our hotel room, Chloe and Tyler claimed they wanted to watch movies and decompress. I let them, retreating to the balcony with my phone and a glass of wine I'd grabbed from the minibar. The ocean stretched out before me, dark and endless. Somewhere out there, my future waited. A future without Gregory. A future where I didn't have to wonder if I was being lied to. A future built on truth instead of false promises. I raised my glass to the moon, to new beginnings. The moon didn't answer, but I didn't need it to. I already knew what came next. The rest of the Charleston vacation was surreal. We stayed the full week because I'd paid for it, and I wasn't about to let Gregory's implosion ruin what little family time we had left. Besides, watching him squirm was oddly satisfying. He moved to a different hotel the next morning. Walter paid for it. I learned later, after Gregory discovered his credit cards were maxed out and his bank accounts frozen. Janet tried calling me twice, leaving increasingly hysterical voicemails about how I was destroying their family. I deleted them without listening all the way through. Chloe and Tyler seemed lighter without their father around. We went to the beach, toured historic homes, ate seafood until we were stuffed. In quiet moments, I caught them watching me with new eyes, like they were seeing someone they'd never quite noticed before. You're kind of a badass, Mom, Chloe said one afternoon while we were shopping for souvenirs. Language, I said automatically. But I was smiling. The real chaos started when we got back to Phoenix. Catherine had been busy during our vacation. By the time I landed, she had court dates scheduled, temporary orders filed, and a strategy that would make Sunzo proud. We met at her downtown office the Tuesday after I returned, and she laid it all out. Gregory's retained Thomas Patterson, she said, sliding a folder across her glass desk. He's expensive, but not very good. Specializes in bullying opposing counsel and hoping they cave. Won't work on me. How is Gregory affording him? Janet's paying. Liquidated some stocks. Walter's apparently refusing to contribute. Which is interesting. It was interesting. Walter had always been the reasonable one. Maybe seeing the evidence had finally opened his eyes to who his son really was. What's our timeline? I ask. First hearing is in 3 weeks, temporary custody and support orders. Gregory's going to argue he should have the kids 50% of the time, and that you should pay him spousal support since he's currently unemployed. I laughed. Actually laughed. He's going to argue I should pay him. He's going to try. Won't work. Not with the fraud charges hanging over his head. Fraud charges. Catherine smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. I filed a complaint with the police department yesterday. Spousal theft, financial fraud, identity theft for using accounts under Janet's name without proper authorization. They're investigating. My stomach dropped. He could go to jail. Probably not, but he could face fines, restitution requirements, and a criminal record. More importantly, it strengthens our position in the divorce. A judge isn't going to look kindly on someone who stole 200 zalozhen from his wife. I sat back processing. This was real. This was actually happening. What do I need to do? Keep living your life. Keep working. Keep being the stable parent. Document everything. Every text from Gregory, every call, every interaction. And whatever you do, don't engage with Janet. She's trying to build a narrative that you're vindictive and unstable. Am I vindictive? You're protecting yourself and your children. There's a difference. I left Catherine's office feeling equal parts empowered and terrified. This was war, and I'd fired the first shot. Now I had to live with the consequences. The first consequence arrived 3 days later in the form of Gregory showing up at my house. I was in my home office preparing a presentation for a client meeting when the doorbell rang. Through the window I could see his car in the driveway. My car, actually, the SUV I'd bought 2 years ago and stupidly put in both our names. I considered not answering, but Chloe was upstairs doing homework, and I didn't want her dealing with him alone if he decided to make a scene. I opened the door, but didn't invite him in. What do you want, Gregory? He looked terrible. Unshaven, rumpled clothes, eyes red from lack of sleep or crying or both. I want to talk to my kids. Call them. You have their numbers. They won't answer. That's not my problem. You turned them against me. No, you did that when you announced you'd found someone new and abandoned them at dinner. I just provided the context for why you did it. He stepped closer. I could smell alcohol on his breath, even though it was barely noon. This is all your fault. If you'd been a better wife, I wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. And there it was, the real Gregory, the one I'd been seeing glimpses of for years, but had always excused or ignored. The narcissist who could never accept responsibility for his own actions. Get off my property, I said calmly. It's my property too. Actually, it's not. It's solely in my name. Has been for 8 years, your idea, remember. Tax advantages. I paid the mortgage with money I gave you from my earnings. I have the bank statements to prove it. Now leave. I want to see Tyler and Chloe. Then schedule it through your lawyer like Catherine told you to. They're my children. Then you should have thought about that before you stole from us and cheated on their mother. Now get off my property before I call the police. He stood there, fists clenching and unclenching. For a moment, I thought he might actually try to push past me. My hand was already moving toward my phone. Then Chloe appeared behind me. Dad, just leave. We don't want to see you. Gregory's face crumbled. Baby, please let me explain. Explain what? That you called Mom frigid, that you stole money from us, that you were screwing around while she worked 60 hours a week. What exactly do you want to explain? Language, I murmured, but my heart wasn't in it. Mom, stop, I'm 17. I can swear when my dad's being a piece of Chloe, I interrupted. Inside now, she glared at Gregory one more time, then retreated. I could hear her thundering up the stairs. Gregory was crying now, actual tears running down his unshaven face. I've lost everything. Yes, you have because you chose to. I still love you. The words hung between us like poisonous flowers. Once they would have meant something. Once I would have softened, considered forgiveness. Wondered if we could rebuild. Now they just made me tired. No, you don't, I said. You love what I provided. Security, income, a home, someone to blame for your failures, but you never loved me. If you had, you wouldn't have done any of this. Brooke, go home. Gregory, or wherever it is you're staying. Don't come back here unless you have a scheduled visitation approved by the court. Don't call me unless it's an emergency involving the kids. Communicate through your lawyer. Are we clear? He wiped his face with his sleeve. You've changed. No, I just stopped pretending to. I closed the door before he could respond. Through the window, I watched him stumble back to the car, get in, and sit there for 5 minutes before finally driving away. My hands were shaking. I gripped the doorknob, breathing slowly, waiting for my heart to stop racing. Mom. Tyler appeared from the kitchen. He'd heard everything. Are you okay? I'm fine, sweetie. You were kind of scary in a good way. I managed a weak laugh. Thanks. I think is he going to keep coming here? Not if I have anything to say about it. That night, I filed for a restraining order. Catherine said it probably wouldn't be granted. Gregory hadn't technically threatened me, but it would send a message and create a paper trail if he showed up again. I was learning to think like a lawyer, document everything, create evidence, build a case. I was also learning what it felt like to truly hate someone I'd once loved. The feeling was surprisingly liberating. The first court hearing arrived like a storm I'd been watching build on the horizon. Catherine had prepared me extensively. What to wear, how to speak, where to look. Judges are human, she'd said. They respond to composure, confidence, and credibility. Gregory will try to paint you as cold and calculating. You need to be calm and capable instead. I wore a navy suit, minimal jewelry, pulled my hair back in a neat bun, professional, but not intimidating, confident, but not aggressive. The costume of a woman who had her life together even as her marriage imploded. Gregory showed up in an ill-fitting suit I didn't recognize, probably borrowed from his father. Thomas Patterson stood beside him, all expensive cologne and aggressive handshake. He looked at me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. Let's get this over with, Catherine murmured as we took our seats. The judge was a woman in her 60s named Patricia Holbrook. Catherine had said she was fair, thorough, and didn't tolerate nonsense from either attorneys or clients. Good news for us, bad news for Gregory. Patterson went first, painting a picture of a devoted father separated from his children by a vindictive wife. He glossed over the affairs, dismissed the financial issues as a misunderstanding about marital assets, and argued that Gregory needed substantial support to re-establish himself after I'd frozen all his accounts. It was a masterclass in spin. If I hadn't known the truth, I might have almost felt sorry for Gregory. Then Catherine stood up. She didn't raise her voice, didn't need to. She simply presented exhibit after exhibit. Bank statements showing the systematic theft, photographs from the private investigator, text messages where Gregory discussed his plans to leave me with nothing, emails between Gregory and Janet discussing how to hide the money, and then the peace to resistance tax documents showing that Gregory had reported fake business losses for the past 3 years to avoid paying his share of taxes on my income. Judge Holbrook's expression grew colder with each exhibit. Mr. Patterson, she said when Catherine finished. Are you seriously asking me to award your client spousal support when he's committed what appears to be both spousal theft and tax fraud? Patterson floundered. Your Honor, those allegations are disputed. They're documented, Catherine interrupted, with dates, amounts, and his signature on multiple transactions. There's also a pending criminal investigation. Criminal investigation. Patterson shot Gregory a look that could have melted steel. Gregory shifted in his seat. He hadn't told his lawyer about that part. Interesting. Judge Holbrook flipped through her notes. I'm ordering temporary custody to Mrs. Brooke with supervised visitation for Mr. Gregory pending the outcome of the criminal investigation. No spousal support. In fact, Mr. Gregory, you're ordered to return the 200,000 to the marital estate within 30 days. Your Honor, he doesn't have access to those funds, Patterson said weakly. Then I suggest he figures out how to access them. 30 days, next hearing in 60 days to assess progress on financial restitution and criminal investigation outcomes. We're adjourned. The gavel came down like a gunshot. Patterson was already berating Gregory in harsh whispers as we left the courtroom. Catherine squeezed my arm. That went better than I expected. He has to pay it back within 30 days or he'll be held in contempt, which means possible jail time. Will he actually go to jail? Probably not. Janet will probably liquidate more assets to help him. But it'll hurt, and that's what matters. We walked out into the Phoenix sunshine. It was April, and the heat was just beginning to build toward the brutal summer months. I felt lighter than I had in months. Years maybe. Drinks to celebrate, Catherine asked. Rain check. I need to pick up Tyler from baseball practice. Then coffee tomorrow morning to discuss next steps. Deal. I drove to Tyler's school, still riding the high of victory. Gregory had thought he could manipulate the system, use his charm and his mother's money to paint me as the villain. Instead, he'd been exposed for exactly what he was. But the high didn't last long. I was waiting in the school parking lot when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Brooke? Who's asking? My name is Cassidy. I'm one of the women your husband was seeing. My hand tightened on the steering wheel. I'm aware of the affairs. If you're calling to gloat, I'm not. I'm calling because I think you need to know something. What? I'm pregnant. The world tilted sideways. What? 3 months. I just found out for sure last week. Gregory's the father. How do you know? Because he's the only one I was sleeping with. And because he told me he was leaving you for me. He said he was going to divorce you, marry me, and we'd start a family together. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. This was beyond betrayal. This was annihilation. Are you there? Cassidy asked. I'm here. I didn't know he was married when we met. He said he was separated. By the time I found out the truth, I was already in too deep. And now I'm pregnant and he won't return my calls. Why are you telling me this? Because I thought you should know. And because I wanted to warn you that I'm keeping the baby and I'm going to file for child support. I know you're getting divorced. I saw the court documents. They're public record. I just wanted you to know before it showed up in court filings. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. Does Gregory know? I've left him a dozen messages. He hasn't responded. Thank you for calling. I'm sorry, she said, and she sounded like she meant it. For all of it. She hung up. I sat there in the parking lot watching parents pick up their kids, watching the normal world continue while mine exploded again. A baby. Gregory had gotten one of his mistresses pregnant. Tyler appeared at the car window. Baseball bag slung over his shoulder. He took one look at my face and his smile faded. Mom, what happened? Get in, I managed. We need to go home. He didn't ask questions during the drive, just sat quietly while I gripped the steering wheel and tried not to scream. When we got home, I went straight to my room and called Catherine. We have a problem, I said when she answered. What kind of problem? The kind where Gregory got one of his mistresses pregnant and she's filing for child support. Silence then. Oh, that's actually perfect. Perfect. How is this perfect? Because it destroys any sympathy he might have gained. It proves the affairs weren't just emotional mistakes. It shows pattern, intent, and consequence. Plus, if she files for child support, that takes money he doesn't have. Money he'd need to pay you back. It's a gift, Brooke. It doesn't feel like a gift. I know, but trust me, this actually helps us. I hung up and lay back on my bed, staring at the ceiling. 23 years of marriage, 2 children, a life built brick by brick, now reduced to rubble. And somewhere, a woman I'd never met was carrying my husband's child. The universe had a sick sense of humor. I didn't tell the kids about Cassidy. Not yet, they were already dealing with enough. But the knowledge sat in my chest like a stone, heavy and cold. Catherine filed a motion to compel Gregory to disclose all potential child support obligations. Patterson fought it, but Judge Holbrook wasn't having it. If Mr. Gregory has fathered a child outside this marriage, it's absolutely relevant to asset division and support calculations, she ruled. Gregory had to admit it in a deposition 2 weeks later. I wasn't there, but Catherine played me the recording. His voice was small, defeated. Yes, I'm potentially the father of Cassid's child. We're waiting for paternity test results, potentially still trying to weasel out of it. The paternity test came back positive in early May. Gregory owed child support starting immediately, which meant the $200,000 he was supposed to return to me was now going to be split between me and Cassidy. Janet was furious, calling me at all hours until I blocked her number. Walter, on the other hand, stopped by the house one evening with a bottle of wine and an apology. I didn't know, he said, standing on my front porch like a man at confession, about any of it, the stealing, the affairs, the planning. If I had known, I would have stopped it. Would you have? He met my eyes. I'd like to think so. I've spent 40 years building a reputation on honesty and integrity. To find out my son has neither. I'm sorry you're going through this. You're sorry, Brooke. You're the victim here. We're all victims of Gregory's choices, even him in a way. Walter smiled sadly. You're more gracious than he deserves. We stood there for a moment, the evening air warm and desert dry. Janet's convinced you planned this whole thing, he said. That you trapped Gregory into revealing himself. I did trap him, but only after I found out what he'd been doing for years. I just gave him enough rope to hang himself. Was the vacation announcement your idea? No, that was pure Gregory. I just had the papers ready for when he made his move. Walter shook his head. I raised him better than this. I thought I did anyway. Some people don't want to be better, they just want to be comfortable. He left after finishing his wine. I appreciated the visit more than I could express. It was nice to know not everyone in Gregory's family was delusional. June arrived with temperatures climbing past 100. The second court hearing was scheduled for mid-May. Gregory still hadn't returned the $200,000. He claimed Janet had the money tied up in investments that would take time to liquidate. Judge Holbrook wasn't sympathetic. Mr. Gregory, you had 30 days, it's been 60. Either produce the funds or explain to me why you shouldn't be held in contempt. Patterson stood up. Your Honor, my client's mother is working with her financial advisor to access the funds. It's a matter of paperwork and market timing. It's a matter of your client committing fraud and then refusing to make restitution. Catherine countered. He stole this money over 4 years. He can return it immediately if he chooses. Judge Holbrook tapped her pen against her notepad. I'm giving you one more extension, 2 weeks. If the money isn't returned by then, Mr. Gregory, you'll spend 30 days in county jail for contempt. Gregory's face went white. Jail, actual jail. Patterson was scrambling now. Your Honor, that seems excessive. What's excessive is stealing $200,000 from your spouse and then playing games about returning it. 2 weeks. We're adjourned. Outside the courthouse, Catherine was practically glowing. He'll return it now. Janet won't let him go to jail. You sound disappointed a little. It would have been satisfying to see him in orange, Catherine. She laughed. I'm kidding. Mostly, but seriously, this is good. Once he returns the money, we can move to final divorce proceedings. This could be over by fall. Over. The word felt strange. After 23 years, it would just be over. That night, Chloe asked if she could talk to me. We sat in my bedroom, cross-legged on the bed like we used to when she was little, and needed help with homework or boy troubles. I've been thinking about college, she said. Okay, I want to go away, far away, maybe California or Oregon. Somewhere I don't have to see Dad or hear about him or deal with any of this. My heart cracked a little. Baby, you don't have to run away. I'm not running away. I'm choosing my own path like you did. I didn't choose this path. I just responded to the situation I was in. No, she said firmly. You chose to fight instead of roll over. You chose to protect yourself and us. You chose strength. That's what I want to cheers too. I pulled her into a hug, blinking back tears. You can go wherever you want. I'll support you completely. Even California. Even California, though. I'll miss you terribly. I'll come home for holidays. You better. We sat there for a while holding each other. And I realized that maybe this whole nightmare had given my daughter something valuable, not just the knowledge that women could be strong, but the permission to choose her own path without guilt. The money arrived in my account on a Tuesday morning, 2 days before Gregory's deadline. All $200,000 transferred from Janet's investment account. Catherine called 30 seconds after I got the notification. Got it, perfect. I'm filing for final divorce proceedings today. We'll argue he violated the marriage contract through infidelity, theft, and fraud. We'll push for you to keep the house, most of the assets, and minimal visitation rights for him. With Cassid's baby on the way and the criminal charges still pending, we're in a strong position. How long? 2, maybe 3 months until it's finalized. You'll be free by your birthday. My birthday was in September. Free by 53. The thought should have made me happy. Instead, I just felt hollow. That weekend, I took Tyler and Chloe hiking at Camelback Mountain. We climbed in the early morning before the heat became unbearable, reaching the summit just as the sun turned the desert gold. Mom, Tyler said, breathing hard from the climb. Do you think Dad will ever apologize? I don't know. Do you want him to? Did I? I'd spent so much energy being angry, being strategic, being strong, but underneath it all, did I want an apology, an explanation? Some sign that the man I'd loved for 2 decades had actually existed at all. I think I want him to understand what he destroyed, I said finally. But I don't think he's capable of that kind of self-awareness. That's sad, Chloe said. It is, but it's not our responsibility to make him understand. We just have to move forward. We stood there on top of the mountain, looking out over Phoenix, spreading below us like a promise. The city where I'd built my career, raised my children, survived my marriage. The city where I'd built my future, whatever that looked like. The final divorce hearing was scheduled for late August, just 3 weeks before my 53rd birthday. Summer in Phoenix was brutal that year, temperatures hovering around 115 degrees, the air so dry it burned your lungs. I felt like the city itself was trying to purify me through fire. Gregory had been living in a small apartment near Temp, funded by Janet's increasingly dwindling resources. The criminal investigation had resulted in a plea deal. He'd avoid jail time if he paid restitution and accepted 3 years of probation. Walter had finally put his foot down and refused to contribute any more money to his son's legal defense. Janet was left shouldering the entire burden alone. Cassidy had her baby in July, a girl she named Sophie. Gregory saw her twice. According to the child support enforcement documents Catherine showed me, he was already 3 months behind on payments. He's going to lose his license soon, Catherine said during one of our prep meetings. Can't practice in his field with a criminal record and unpaid child support. He's basically unemployable now. What will he do? Not your problem anymore. She was right, but I still felt a strange twist of something that might have been pity. 23 years didn't just evaporate even when they should. The night before the hearing, Chloe came to my room with her college acceptance letters. She'd gotten into 3 schools in California, 2 in Oregon, and 1 in Washington. I'm thinking University of San Diego, she said, spreading the letters across my bed like tarot cards reading the future. That's far. That's the point, Mom. Fresh start, new life like you're getting. I'm not getting a new life. I'm just getting my old one back. No, you're getting a better one. You're getting the version where you're not carrying dead weight. I wanted to argue to tell her that her father wasn't dead weight, that he'd contributed something to our family besides pain and debt, but I couldn't think of what that something was. Tyler was less decisive about his future. At 15, he was caught in that terrible space between childhood and adulthood, watching his family implode and trying to figure out who he was supposed to become. He'd started seeing a therapist in June, a kind woman named Patricia, who specialized in teens dealing with family trauma. How's Tyler doing? I asked her during a parent check-in session. He's angry, Patricia said, which is healthy. He's allowed to be angry. He's also sad and confused and sometimes relieved that the tension is finally over. That's all normal. Will he be okay eventually? Kids are resilient and he has you, which matters more than you probably realize. The morning of the hearing, I dressed in the same navy suit I'd worn to every court appearance, my uniform of war. Catherine met me at the courthouse steps, looking sharp and gray with her briefcase like a weapon, ready as I'll ever be. Remember, Gregory is going to try one last manipulation. He might cry. He might plead. He might try to paint himself as the victim. Don't react. Stay composed. Let me handle him. Inside, the courtroom was cold from aggressive air conditioning, a stark contrast to the inferno outside. Gregory was already there with Patterson, both looking like they'd rather be anywhere else. Gregory had lost weight, his suit hanging off him like a scarecrow's clothes. His hair was graying at the temples in a way I'd never noticed before. He looked old, defeated, broken good. Judge Holbrook entered and we all stood. She'd been assigned to our case from the beginning, which Catherine said was lucky. She's seen everything from the start. She knows exactly who Gregory is. The proceedings started with Patterson making one last desperate pitch for joint custody and a more equitable asset split. My client has made mistakes, he said. But he's still the father of these children. He deserves to maintain a relationship with them. He has supervised visitation, Judge Holbrook said, which he's used exactly 4 times in 6 months. If Mr. Gregory wanted a relationship with his children, he's had ample opportunity. He's been dealing with significant life changes he created through his own choices. Mr. Patterson, I've been practicing family law for 30 years. I can spot a manipulator when I see one. Your client stole from his wife, cheated on her repeatedly, fathered a child with another woman, and has shown zero remorse or accountability. I'm not interested in rewarding that behavior. Patterson sat down. He knew when he was beaten. Catherine presented our final requests. I'd keep the house, my retirement accounts, and 70% of remaining marital assets. Gregory would get his personal belongings, his car which was 8 years old and barely running, and 30% of assets, minus the restitution he still owed. He'd have supervised visitation with the kids until they turned 18, at which point they could decide for themselves. No spousal support either direction, clean break. Judge Holbrook reviewed the documents, asked a few clarifying questions, then looked directly at Gregory. Mr. Gregory, do you have anything to say before I make my ruling? Gregory stood slowly. I braced myself for the tears, the pleading, the manipulation Catherine had warned me about. I'm sorry, he said quietly, for all of it. I was selfish and stupid, and I destroyed the best thing I ever had. The courtroom was silent. Even Judge Holbrook seemed surprised by the straightforward admission. I don't expect forgiveness, Gregory continued. I don't deserve it. I just wanted Brooke to know that she was right about everything, about me, about what I did, about why I did it. She deserves better than I ever gave her. He sat down. Patterson looked stunned. Catherine's eyebrow raised slightly. I felt nothing. His words were just words, empty sounds in a cold room. Too little, far too late. Judge Holbrook cleared her throat. Thank you for your honesty, Mr. Gregory, even if it comes at the 11th hour. However, remorse doesn't undo harm. I'm granting the divorce on the terms proposed by Mrs. Brooke's counsel. This marriage is dissolved. You're both free to move forward with your lives. The gavel came down one final time. It was over. The courthouse steps were blinding in the August sun. Catherine was talking about final paperwork and asset transfers, but I barely heard her. 23 years had just been reduced to signatures on legal documents and a judge's pronouncement. Done. Finished. Brooke? Catherine touched my arm. Are you okay? I don't know what I am. You're free. That's what you are. Free. The word felt strange, like trying on clothes that didn't quite fit yet. I'd been Gregory's wife for so long, I wasn't sure who Brooke was without that title attached. Go home, Catherine said. Open wine, celebrate. You won. Had I won, it didn't feel like winning. It felt like surviving a natural disaster. Exhausted, traumatized but still breathing. I drove home through familiar streets, past the office buildings where I'd closed $1,000,000 deals, past the school where I'd dropped Tyler off that morning. Past the coffee shop where Gregory and I used to meet for breakfast on Saturdays back when things were good, or when I'd thought they were good. The house was empty when I arrived. Tyler was at baseball practice, Chloe at a friend's house. I stood in the foyer, looking at the home I'd fought so hard to keep, and suddenly understood why I'd fought for it. Not because of the house itself, but because it represented something Gregory couldn't take from me. Proof that I'd built something lasting without his help, despite his betrayal. My phone buzzed. A text from Walter heard its final. Congratulations, if that's the right word. You deserved better than what my son gave you. I wrote back, thank you for everything, for being honest and decent when you didn't have to be. Another text, this one from a number I didn't recognize. This is Cassidy. I know this is weird, but I wanted to say thank you for not making Sophie part of the court battle. She doesn't deserve to be collateral damage. Neither did any of us. I replied. Take care of your daughter. I hope Gregory steps up for her, but if he doesn't, you seem strong enough to do it alone. Learned from watching you. The texts kept coming. Friends I'd lost touch with during the marriage, colleagues who'd heard through the grapevine. Even my own mother calling from Florida where she'd retired 5 years ago. I never liked him, she said without preamble. You could have mentioned that before I married him. Would you have listened? Probably not. Well, you're free of him now. What are you going to do? What was I going to do? I'd spent so much energy on the fight that I hadn't thought much about the after. I don't know. Work, raise the kids, figure out who I am. You're Brooke. You've always been Brooke. You just forgot for a while. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on the back patio, watching the sun turn the sky impossible shades of pink and orange. Phoenix sunsets were spectacular. The one benefit of living in a desert where the heat could kill you. Chloe came home first, crashing through the door with her usual teenage chaos. Is it done? It's done. She hugged me hard, smelling like chlorine and sunscreen from an afternoon at her friend's pool. How do you feel? Weird, empty, relieved, sad, all of it at once. That's fair. She pulled back, studying my face. Are you gonna cry? Maybe later. Can I cry? Of course she did. Right there on the patio. Sobbing into my shoulder while the sky darkened and the desert cooled from furnace to merely oppressive. I held her and let her grieve for the family we'd been, the father she'd thought she had. The future she'd imagined that would never exist now. Tyler came home an hour later, sweaty from practice and ravenous as always. I ordered pizza, his favorite, the one with too much pepperoni and extra cheese, and we ate dinner on the patio like it was a normal night, like nothing had changed, like everything hadn't changed. So, Dad's really gone? Tyler asked around a mouthful of pizza. He's really gone. Good, can we get a dog? I laughed, the first genuine laugh I'd had in months. Why do you want a dog? Because Dad always said no and now he can't. Chloe perked up. Wait, can we? I've wanted a dog forever. We'll think about it. That's Mom for yes, Tyler told his sister. That's Mom for we'll think about it. I corrected, but I was smiling. We finished dinner and cleaned up together, moving around the kitchen in the easy rhythm we'd developed over the summer. This was my family now. Not the broken, toxic unit we'd been, but something smaller, simpler, and infinitely more honest. That night after the kids went to bed, I stood in my bedroom and looked at the space where Gregory's things used to be. Empty drawers, bare closet rod, nothing left of him but absence. I should have felt sad. Instead, I felt light. I pulled out my laptop and opened my email. There was a message from Catherine with all the final divorce documents. I downloaded them to a folder labeled Done and closed the computer. 23 years reduced to digital files in a folder. But also 23 years survived, endured, overcome. I climbed into bed, my bed in my house, in my life, and slept better than I had in years. September arrived with slightly cooler temperatures and the sense of new beginnings. Chloe left for University of San Diego in mid-May, her car packed with everything she owned, her face bright with possibility. Tyler started his sophomore year of high school, trying out for varsity baseball and talking about colleges already, even though he had 3 years left. I threw myself into work with renewed energy. Without the constant drain of Gregory's needs, complaints, and betrayals, I found I had time and focus I'd forgotten existed. I closed 3 major deals in September alone, earning commissions that made my bank account look healthy for the first time in years. My colleagues noticed the change. You're different, my boss, Jennifer said over coffee one morning, sharper, more focused. I got rid of dead weight. Gregory was always dead weight. I'm glad you finally saw it. You could have said something. Would you have listened? It was the same question, and my mother had asked. The answer was the same too. Probably not. In October, I got a call from an unknown number. Gregory, I deleted his contact but still recognized the digits. I let it go to voicemail. Brooke, it's me. I know you don't want to talk to me, but I needed to say something. I'm moving to Nevada. Job opportunity, fresh start, all that. I wanted to let you know so you don't think I'm abandoning Tyler and Chloe. I'll still be close enough to visit. I'm trying to do better. Be better anyway. I hope you're doing okay. You deserve to be okay. I deleted the message without finishing it. Catherine called the next day. Did Gregory contact you? How did you know? Because he sent me a formal notice that he's relocating required by the custody agreement. He's taking a job at a car dealership in Las Vegas, sales position. Good for him, I guess. He's also 3 months behind on child support again for both Sophie and your kids. Cassid's filing for wage garnishment. Not my problem anymore, exactly. But it bothered me more than I wanted to admit. Not because I needed his money, I didn't. But because Tyler and Chloe deserved a father who followed through, who showed up, who tried. Instead, they got Gregory, who ran away to Nevada and played victim. Tyler took the news stoically. Whatever, I didn't want to see him anyway. Chloe was more philosophical. Maybe it's better this way. Clean break. No awkward forced visits where we all pretend things are fine. My smart, perceptive daughter. When had she gotten so wise? November brought my first real date since the divorce. A colleague set me up with a divorced architect named James who liked hiking and classic movies. We met for dinner at a quiet restaurant, talked for 3 hours, and parted with a promise to do it again. He texted the next day, "Had a great time, you're fascinating." I wrote back, "You're very kind, but I think I need more time before I'm ready for this." He responded with a thumbs up and whenever you're ready, if ever, let me know. I appreciated that. No pressure, no expectations, just space to heal. The holidays approached with a mix of dread and anticipation. First Thanksgiving without Gregory, first Christmas, but also first holidays where I didn't have to manage his moods, his parents, his demands. Walter invited us to Thanksgiving at his house. Janet had apparently moved to California to be near Gregory, which said everything about where her priorities lay. We accepted Walter's invitation and had a surprisingly lovely dinner with him and his sister's family. People who'd always been kind to me, even when I was married to Gregory. "I'm divorcing Janet," Walter told me quietly while we were cleaning up after dinner. Should have done it years ago. Took watching her enable Gregory to finally open my eyes. "I'm sorry, don't be. Some marriages are meant to end. Mine, yours, we're both better off." For Christmas, I took Tyler to San Diego to visit Chloe. We spent a week at the beach eating fish tacos and watching the sunset over the Pacific. Chloe had made friends, joined clubs, discovered she loved marine biology. She was thriving. "I think I made the right choice," she said one evening while we walked along the shore. "Leaving, starting over." "You did. You absolutely did. You should too." "I did start over. I'm divorced, remember?" "No, I mean really start over. Date, travel, do something crazy. You spent 23 years taking care of Dad and us. Now take care of yourself." She was right. I'd spent so long being a wife and mother that I'd forgotten how to just be Brooke. On the flight home, I made a list on my phone. Things I wanted to do now that I was free. Take a photography class, learn to sail, visit Italy, read all the books I'd been too tired to read, say yes to opportunities I'd been too busy to consider, live deliberately instead of reactively, build a life that was mine, not a compromise, not a supporting role in someone else's story, just mine. Gregory's move to Las Vegas lasted 6 months before he was fired for missing work and showing up drunk. He bounced between jobs after that, sales positions mostly, each one lasting shorter than the last. His relationship with Cassidy deteriorated completely after he missed Sophie's first birthday. And she eventually got a restraining order when he showed up at her apartment demanding money. Tyler and Chloe stopped responding to his texts by the time Tyler graduated high school. He became a ghost in their lives, an occasional awkward phone call on birthdays that they tolerated out of obligation rather than affection. Janet spent the last of her savings supporting Gregory's failures before finally cutting him off. She died alone in a small apartment in Henderson, Nevada 3 years after the divorce, her obituary noting only one surviving son. Gregory didn't attend the funeral. Walter remarried a year after his own divorce, a lovely woman named Patricia who made him laugh. He stayed in touch with me and the kids, proving that some family bonds transcended biology. As for me, I stood in my backyard one spring evening, 2 years after the divorce, watching the desert bloom with wild flowers that only appeared after the winter rains. I'd learned to sail, visited Florence, started the photography class. I'd even gone on a few more dates, though nothing serious yet. Maybe someday, maybe not. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I'd reclaimed myself. I'd fought back against betrayal and won. Not perfectly, not without scars, but completely. And standing there in the fading light, I realized something important. The best revenge wasn't the court victories or the money or watching Gregory fail. The best revenge was building a life so good, so full, so entirely my own that he became irrelevant to it. I'd spent 6 months preparing to destroy him. I'd spent 2 years learning to forget him. That was the real victory.